Y'all, this video is going to be a little bit long because there is a lot to talk about here, because there's Sydney Sweeney, the ad, the response, Doja Cat, the response. Like, this is going to end up being a whole shebang, but I'm here to give you the rundown, okay? Okay, first on the agenda, who on earth is Sydney Sweeney? I have never heard this name. I've never seen it on social media, or maybe I've seen it on social media, but there was no indication of who this individual is, because I couldn't tell you what this person does. Does she make music? Does she make movies? I don't know. I've never heard anybody be like, "Oh, Sydney Sweeney finna be in a movie," or "Oh, that new Sydney Sweeney song is falling off the band," right? I don't know who this person is. But anyway, Sydney Sweeney was recently in an American Eagle advertisement, okay? Now that brings us to our next question. Who the hell is wearing American Eagle in 2025? Mind you, I'm not even big on name brands. I wear whatever. But American Eagle, I don't think I've heard that uttered since early college, for real. American Eagle, I see why y'all making an ad, and I see why y'all could only afford to get Sydney Sweeney in it, because again, who is that? Because who is wearing American Eagle? Okay, so Sydney Sweeney was in this American Eagle ad, and the ad was very minimalistic, right? So she was walking around the room and she was saying some sarcastic stuff I'm not telling you to buy the jeans or whatever, right? And then finally a narrator says, and the words pop up on the screen as well, Sydney Sweeney has great jeans. And that's it, right? Now, I will say this. From the untrained eye that I'm looking at it with, it seems pretty normal. I mean, it was a little corny to me, but I wouldn't have seen that and been oh no, that's racist or whatever, right? But I will say this though. Even at my age, I'm 29 years old, and I mean, as you can tell from my YouTube channel, I'm really into this stuff, right? I know more about this stuff than the average person. This is on my mind more than the average person's, right? And there's still so much about white supremacy that I don't know. I just recently learned some new white supremacist symbols. Well, not new to me, right? But one of them was 2 lightning bolts. One of them was a number. I can't remember the number. But my point is this, though. It could very well happen that I see an advertisement and I'm oh, that looks normal, because there's something hidden that I don't know the ins and outs of. It could be some white supremacist symbol in it, and it's I don't know that symbol, so it doesn't send off any red flags for me, right? So I do acknowledge that, absolutely. There was immediate backlash. People were saying this was very white supremacist and all these other things, right? So then that got me to thinking maybe, this commercial, it is overtly about blue jeans, right? Jeans, but maybe they're using a play on words, right? With Genes, the genes in your body, right? So I was maybe there's something here about okay, this is a blonde white woman. This is the pinnacle of the Eurocentric standard of beauty, right? Because even within white women, some of them don't 100% align. Now, hold up, because y'all finna be in the comments yeah, I'm a brunette, I'm a redhead, I'm so oppressed. Girl, it's not that type of party. I'm black. Shut your ass up, right? But my point is this, right? This woman is what is again, the image of what is white, right? Blonde hair, blue eyes, brick booty. Come on, let's be for real, right? So now I'm thinking is this a play on words with oh, she has good genes? Oh yeah, this is the sort of phenotype you should be aiming for, right? These white genes, so and so and so, right? So then I was okay, that makes sense. But then I was I could be reaching as well, but I could also not be, because I said, look, they be hiding stuff in plain sight for real. But anyway, I'm about to go on Twitter and look at some tweets and hopefully find some examples of things people were saying about this advertisement and why they were disagreeing with it. Oh, y'all, I'm not gonna hold y'all. I can't look through that hashtag no more. I cannot, because y'all, so it's a bunch of, first of all, it's a bunch of white people. I only saw one black person, in the tweets. And I'm going to be honest with y'all. I swear I know this dude. He's always posted some cool shit. So I didn't even bother to include him in this video because that does not prove any point about anything. So whatever, moving along, right? But it's a bunch of white people under the Sydney Sweeney hashtag. And it's like a bunch of Republicans, and they're like, oh, liberals are mad at Sydney Sweeney, so and so and so. And then most of the liberals are like, bro, nobody gives a fuck about Sydney Sweeney. But then there's a couple liberals who are like, oh, hold up, wait, what was they saying? Hold up, man, this devil's lettuce got me. Hold up, I'm like, wait. Oh, it was a couple liberals. They were like, yeah, Sydney Sweeney is using Nazi dog whistles, so and so and so. I'm not gonna hold y'all. I felt like I was scrolling forever, but I might just be elevated, right? So I might not have scrolled that long at all. But it was just like nobody was saying what exactly the Nazi dog whistles were. Like, I guess what the Nazi propaganda was the good genes. I think that was what everybody who was upset about. Okay, but y'all let me know in the comments, right? That is what I've gathered, okay? So now let's get into Doja Cat, okay? Now, before I even say what Doja Cat did in this situation, I'm going to tell y'all right now, because y'all know I like Doja Cat's music. I've actually been a fan of hers for a very long time. I remember back in like 2016, I was getting my hair done in college. I was at some girl house. One thing about me, baby, I'm going to be up in somebody's house getting my hair done, okay? But she was playing this song, you get me so high, you get me so high. I know you're not a drug, but you get me so high. And I Shazammed that song, and it was by Doja Cat. And that's when I started listening to her, right? But I will say this. So let's get a little background, a little context on Doja Cat. Doja Cat is a biracial woman, okay? She is not black. Let's nip that in the bud right now, right? Her dad is South African, and her mom is a white Jewish woman, right? Now, her dad, ooh, y'all, let me tell you about her daddy. Her dad was like this big South African actor. He was literally in a movie with Whoopi Goldberg, right? I'm adding that context because the dude was not broke. So he moved back to South Africa. He left Doja Cat and her brother with their white mother, right? And that was pretty much it. And I'm appalled because, again, this dude was an actor who was in a movie with Whoopi Goldberg. He had enough money to send for them kids. You know, I don't know exactly what was in his pockets, but them kids could have came to visit him sometime. He could have came to visit them sometime. You know, he could have kept in contact, right? But he did not. And it is very obvious that destroyed Doja Cat. It is very obvious. And I actually have a personal experience about something like this. And I've told you guys this story before, right? So when I was in high school, I was about 15. I went to Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp. Now, for those of y'all who don't know, Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp is on the opposite side of Michigan from Detroit, right? So it was not a lot of black people at that camp, okay? So one day I was in the cabin alone with this biracial girl who was also my cabin mate, right? But we ended up alone in the cabin because it was break time and we had both went back to the cabin. Some people had minors, so they were at their minor classes. Some people, you know, were hanging out with their friends outside of the cabin. But us two happened to be in the cabin alone at this time. That biracial girl quite literally had a breakdown. I'm not even joking. I guess I was the first black person she had ever met, or maybe, you know, maybe she had met black people in passing, but I was the first one she'd ever been around, like, alone, right, to vent all this stuff to. But she was just like, yeah, and I have a lot of animosity towards black people because my black dad abandoned me. And I remember I was 15. I was just like, ooh, girl, sorry to hear that. Because, like, girl, I don't know what you want from me. You know, I'm just here to play the violin, right? But thinking back on that, I'm tearing up. I'm literally tearing up, right? Because now, for those of y'all who don't know, my dad did not know his dad, right? And of course, you know, that comes with all of its own issues and all of its own traumas, right? But you add this added layer of complexity when your father is not the same race as you, right? And it's like, of course, you're going to end up projecting those feelings towards everything that your father is and denouncing those things and saying you don't want anything to do with them because of the animosity that you have towards your father, right? And I'm tearing up again because even though I know my dad, he's in my life and I love him very much, right? this is something that hits close to me because, like I said, my dad didn't have a dad, and it's very angering because it's like, how could you do my daddy like that, bitch? So, like, I can't even imagine how it feels on a personal level, right? Now, hold up, let me make it very clear. I am not saying that, biracials have any right to be racist against black people or treat us any type of way or anything. But what I'm saying is, and I say this all the time in my YouTube videos, right? I always talk about, all of these ways that biracials treat black people, but you got to look at the root cause of it as well, right? Because, again, imagine being abandoned by your parent. Of course, you're going to feel animosity towards that person, but then let's take it a step further. Imagine you are a biracial child and your black parent abandons you to be raised around all white people. You are going to go through hell. Listen to the stories that biracial people tell about, their white mothers, right? About how their white cousins and aunts and uncles called them the N-word, and how, they grew up around all white people and were confused, and, they went to school with all white people and they never fit in, and so and so and so, right? You are literally going to go through racial hell as a biracial child whose black parent abandons you. At least if you had a black parent in your life. Now, don't get me wrong, biracials are not black, right? But at least a black parent understands racism and can defend you and be like, hell no, y'all not finna call my child that. You know what I'm saying? And can help you understand at least how to deal with racism in some capacity or something, right? Like, y'all. Anyway, that brings us back to Doja Cat, right? So Doja Cat has been exposed for being basically racist against black people many times, right? Like, there was this screenshot, I just seen it recently, where somebody was like, she's showing feet in the racial chat rooms, and quite literally, she was posting feet pics in chat rooms with a bunch of racist white men and stuff, right? Doja Cat has even said, and somebody dropped the exact quote in the comments, please. She had said some shit before about like, oh, she wished she was white, but, at least being half black, she got a big butt and she has rhythm and stuff, right? Like, Doja Cat has made it very clear she don't like black people, which that makes me ask the question, why do you say the N-word if you don't like black people, you don't identify with black people at all? Like, that got me side-eyeing you, because, like, what? Now, that is the first thing. Doja Cat has made it very clear that she views black people very lowly. And as a biracial person, you have to ask the question, well, how do you view yourself then, right? And I ask that all the time in the opposite direction as well, because some biracials be trying too hard to pretend they black, and they'll be like, I hate white people. And it's like, well, you're biracial, so how do you feel about yourself? How do you hate half of who you are and not hate yourself? Like, that don't make sense. But whatever, that's the first thing. Now, the second thing is, I will say this. Doja Cat has a very, very white person sense of humor. You can tell that she was raised around all white people. It's true. And the best way I can describe this is actually, let me tell you something that's been happening recently. So at WNBA games, people have been throwing dildos onto the court, right? And somebody posted on Twitter and they said, that it is white people doing that. No, they said white men. They said that's peak white man humor. And I said, that's very true. That is very true. And another example, when I went to Colorado, we were on the little train that goes through the Royal Gorge, and like, while you're going through, what river is that? Somebody remind me, right? But whatever river that is, people be kayaking on the river and they will moon the train. That's when you pull your pants down and show your butt to the train. And that is very white people humor, right? And it's crazy because, like, the train people who were doing, like, the I was gonna say tours, but no, who were like, telling facts, oh, this is that, they were talking about it endearingly, like, oh yeah, the kayakers will moon the train and so and so and so, and everybody's like, ho, golly gee, really? Because, right, and it actually happened while we were on the train, and all the white people were like, oh, cheerio, mate, like, and I was just thinking, like, yeah, this is not fucking funny, like, like, I don't know, like, cover your ass up, what the hell you doing? I don't know, but my point is that also is very white people humor. Like, it's true, white people have a different humor. It's very true, and Doja has that white humor. Whenever Doja talks, I just be like, girl, zip-a-da-lip-a-da. Like, you know what I'm saying? She's very weird, very corny. That is a fact. So that brings us up to speed and gets us to where we need to be to understand what exactly happened with this Sydney Sweeney thing. Oh, shit. There was another American Eagle commercial. Y'all, I just realized because I went to go watch Doja Cat's video mocking Sydney Sweeney, and she was saying some stuff, and I was like, what? That wasn't in the video I watched. So then I went and I looked it up, And there was another American Eagle commercial. So, oh, now I see why everybody's mad. Oh, yeah, this makes perfect sense now. So, in this commercial, Sydney Sweeney says genes are passed down from parent to offspring, and they, determine things like hair color, eye color, even personality. My genes are blue. And then the narrator comes on and says Sydney Sweeney has great genes. Now I get it. So yes, people are complaining about the fact that quite literally they're saying, oh, this white woman has blonde hair and blue eyes. Those are good genes. Oh yeah, this is not any sort of this is obvious. Like, wait, people were acting like it was some like, oh yeah, like some secretive message. This was very, very obvious. Come on now. Like, okay, now I get it. So now let's get to Doja Cat, okay? So Doja Cat mocks Sydney Sweeney's ad. And she makes her voice like, genes are passed down from parent to offspring and often. And I'm sorry, but Doja with the cat, you need to stick to music, girl. Comedy is not your forte, but that music you'll be making, ooh, falling off the bone. But bitch, you is a corny mamma jam. I'm not gonna hold you. Every time Doja Cat posts, I can't even I could never follow her on social media. Like, racism aside, let's pretend she wasn't racist, right? Every time she posts, I just be like, it's so cringeworthy. It really is. I gotta ask white people, do y'all think this is funny? Cause maybe I'm just not the target audience, because Doja is just very, very oh goodness, this was not funny. And honestly, I don't know if she was trying to shade Sydney Sweeney or if she was really just trying to have some comedic timing. But either way, it wasn't funny. It just wasn't funny. Come on now. Like, girl, just hush up. You know you're not funny. Hush up. I can't tell you what about Doja Cat is so corny. Because, sometimes I change my voice. I do, right? But, I don't know. It just all comes together with me. Something just, the math just maths with me. It really does, right? Just changing your voice, this... I don't know. And I'm trying to be understanding, because I understand, sometimes when you high, shit be funny, and it don't be funny when you sober. So I'm like, maybe she high or something. But even high, because I'm high right now, this shit still is not funny. So it's like, you gonna need some fucking, I don't know, some crack or something to be high enough to laugh at this. Because, what the hell? When I tell y'all white people was on Doja Cat's white on rice, baby. Niggas in line at the check cashing place on payday. That's how they was on her ass. And y'all, I'm not gonna hold y'all, some tea kinda got clocked. Y'all, people were in the replies Doja Cat can't talk, she wanna be white anyway. And I was like, oh, she literally do. And then somebody else was like, oh, Doja Cat's just jealous. And I was like, oh, but she actually literally fucking is. Y'all, it's crazy because, ooh, y'all, I'm gonna clock a little tea myself, right? I've made videos about something before, right? I've made a number of videos talking about how, realistically, we live in a white supremacist world. There is a racial hierarchy, quite clearly, right? White people were at the top, black people were at the bottom, because we're the antithesis of white people, right? But in between, you have all these different groups, right? And the reality is that somebody who is half black and half white will be somewhere perfectly in the middle of that, that racial hierarchy, right? They're lower than white people, but they're higher than black people, right? And I mentioned how this is the reason why whenever a black woman disagrees with a biracial woman on anything, the first thing the biracial says is, you're just jealous of me, right? And black people do it to each other in defense of biracials too. Black people will say to other black people, you're just jealous of that biracial, right? And I say, you notice though, right? At least I notice, as much as I get into it with African women and Caribbean women, I've never had an African woman or a Caribbean woman accuse me of being jealous of them, ever, right? But non-black women, whether they're biracials or whatever, right? They do that all the time. And that's evidence that these people are aware of this racial hierarchy, and they're aware of the fact that you're below them on it, right? Because you also notice, you never see black women saying to biracial women, you're just jealous of me, right? Because again, there's that racial hierarchy that everybody is acting like doesn't exist, but everybody is actually aware of, right? It was funny to see this working against biracials. I'm not gonna hold y'all. Y'all like to hold that over black women's heads. So I love the good humbling. I ain't gonna hold you, right? Because biracial women are always quick to say, oh, black women are jealous of me. But you see how quickly white women did the same thing to you? How quickly they said, oh, you're just jealous of me, right? And Doja Cat can't even say nothing because she quite literally does want to be white. She quite literally does hate black people and hate the part of her that is black. She quite literally does only date white men. Like somebody in the comments was like, girl, you just mad because you only like white men, so and so and so, right? Quite literally all of this is true of her. So she can't even really say nothing. And it's funny because it has to be a very humbling experience. You spent your entire career putting black people down, right? And begging for crumbs of white supremacy. And look at you. You still don't fit in. And the funny thing is going to be, in a couple years, Doja Cat is probably going to do a rebranding and be talking about she's black and, you know, she just had to discover herself and so and so and so. Because this is probably going to be what makes her realize that white people ain't never going to fuck with her, no matter how much she puts black people down. And that has to be so sad as a biracial, though, right? Because like I said, she mad at black people because her black daddy abandoned her, right? That's why she trying so hard to be white and kissing white people ass so much, right? But look at how white people do you. Dum dum doodle hair. Look at you. Look at you. You look fucking stupid. You spent your whole career worshiping these people. You was in chat rooms dropping feet to fucking Nazi white men and stuff, right? And look at you. Look at you. You look fucking dumb. And it's crazy because, like I said, she probably gonna come running to black people. Hey, black people, black people. Look at how they're treating me. Oh, well, golly gee, look at this. I wonder where that came from. I ain't gonna hold you. I kind of like watching this. I'm not gonna hold you. This guy be like, ooh, chile, like, oh my god, like that white on biracial crime got me scared. You know what I'm saying? Like, this was a good watch. This was really a good watch. As a black woman who is constantly accused of being jealous of biracial women because they are closer to the white standard of beauty, even if them bitches is ugly. And that brings me to my next point. Doja Cat looks better than Sydney Sweeney. That's a fact. Say a lot of for the bitches in the back. That is a fact. Doja Cat looks better than Sydney Sweeney, but that doesn't matter. Simply because Sydney Sweeney is a blue-eyed, blonde-haired white woman. She can look like the crack of an ass, but simply because she is white, people will pretend that a better-looking biracial woman is jealous of her, right? Now, to be fair, like I said, Doja Cat does want to be white, so, I mean, shit, she might be jealous of Sydney Sweeney ugly ass, right? But the same thing happens, like I said, between black women and biracial women and non-black women, period, because all of y'all do this to black women, right? Y'all bitches can look like somebody booty hole, and you will sit there and say that a black woman is jealous of you. And then the question becomes, for what, bitch? Because I can't be jealous of how you look. You look like shit. And then y'all always, be like, you know why you're jealous. Because you don't want to say aloud, you're jealous of me because I'm closer to being white than you are. Even though I look like ass and smell like doo-doo, well, I'm still closer to being white than you. So you have to be jealous of me. So it was very funny to see this happen between the same people who inflicted upon black women and the white women who they are, always bragging about being closer to. It was very funny to see this. Ooh, when the oppressors become the oppressed.